Hi, my name is Katja Vogt and I teach philosophy at Columbia University.
Hi, my name is Jens Haas and I'm a photographer and artist.
Oh, you're a mess, aren't you?
I'm not very tall either. Next time I'll come on stilts, wear a white tie and carry a tennis racket.
I doubt if even that would help.
As a philosophical theory, relativism is a response to persistent disagreement and difference. Philosophers tend not to be relativists, so the dynamic is more that there's the assumption that a lot of people who are not philosophers are tempted to be relativists because they encounter disagreement and difference in their daily lives. And then if you don't want to say, I'm right and you're wrong, you're somehow tempted to say, well, maybe we are just both right. And roughly that is relativism. It is, according to pretty much all philosophers, a completely impossible, absurd view because it means that all beliefs are true and there's no truth and falsity. So even though we might be tempted to be relativists because we encounter a lot of persistent disagreement, at the end of the day, it is not a tenable position. So philosophers are very much interested in how can we account for persistent disagreement and difference without being relativists.
Well, so long, copper. Wish me luck. I got a raw deal.
Your kind always does.
So just in general, why I think that Robert Altman's movie The Long Goodbye relates to relativism. In my view, it engages with a clash of cultures. And relativism is either about disagreement and difference between two people or between two cultures. So this is about two cultures. And often philosophers think that two cultures are going to be located at different faraway places. But of course, that's not really true. We live in diverse societies. And so the movie The Long Goodbye by Robert Altman interests me specifically because it is about a clash of cultures at the same place at the same time. So here's this guy, Marlowe, who is totally the kind of old film noir character from the 1940s and 50s, and he is placed in 1970s California. So he still has all these old values, which clash entirely with the values of his environment. And he's sort of walking through this and he keeps mumbling, it's okay with me, it's okay with me.
Well, that's okay with me, but I'm not going to take my tie off. All right, you leave your tie on.
But then at some point, things are not okay with him. So there's a kind of interesting question of if we are going to live in diverse societies, what kinds of things are just going to be okay with us? And what kinds of things are going to be not okay with us? Where do we draw the line? So that's the reason why, as a philosopher, you might want to watch the movie and be interested in how it engages with these questions.
So the idea that Altman had is that he takes the Marlowe from Chandler's 1950s book and places him in 1970s California and has him wander around in this alien landscape. It's just 20 years, and at the same time, it's totally different. And that's how the movie starts, ingeniously, I think. Very unpretentious. Marlowe wakes up at 3 a.m. in his bed, in his Marlowe clothes. And he wakes up because his cat wants to be fed. So he's going to feed the cat, look for cat food because he doesn't have the right cat food.
Hey, why don't you think of all the tigers in India they're killing because they don't get enough to eat?
And the cat wants only one kind of cat food.
Don't believe that one, huh?
And this results in this 10 to 12 minute sequence that's deservedly famous, I think, that almost already wraps up the whole movie into this one scene where you have Marlowe wandering through this alien landscape of people he never really connects to.
Oh, yeah? You don't happen to have a cat by any chance?
What do I need a cat for? I got a girl.
And it's always a little off, and he talks to his neighbors. They don't understand him, and he doesn't understand them. They are nice to each other, but they almost live in different worlds.
Gotta be the nicest neighbor. I'm a private eye. It's okay with me.
The scene achieves, I think, in a seemingly effortless way, reinventing the character in a way, introducing the new environment, the clashes that Marlowe is going to have throughout the movie until the end that's different from the original book the whole movie is based on.
Did you have a deal with Terry Lennox? Do you think it's funny to steal $355,000 from Marty Augustine?
You know, the title of the movie is The Long Goodbye.
There's a long goodbye
That is also the title of the song that is sort of in many, many variations. The whole soundtrack of the movie consists just of variations of that song. And the movie, in a way, consists of a number of goodbyes, and very different kinds of goodbyes. So the first goodbye is that Marlowe's cat leaves.
It's okay with me.
And sort of says goodbye because she doesn't get the right food. You know, that's this sort of really famous scene. He's trying to find curry brand cat food.
Curry brand, C-O-U-R.
Oh, we're all of that.
Curry
Why
brand.
don't you get this, mister? All this shit is the same anyway.
And he puts the wrong cat food into an old curry brand container, and the cat notices it and just leaves. And there's this idea that, you know, everyone sort of draws the line somewhere. The cat draws the line at not getting the right food. But it's a setup for, you know, what is going to be the analog between people. And throughout the movie, then, Marlowe continues to look for his cat. And that is also one of the occasions where he has these really, lovely conversations with his neighbors, because he keeps saying,
Girls, did you see my cat?
and then they don't understand him because they think, you know, they just really don't know who he is, or what he's all about. So then they will say, because he's walking around with this suit, they will say,
Did you say you wanted a hat?
and then he says in response, because he thinks, you know, women are kind of like in the olden days he thinks they were, he will say in response, no, you don't look fat.
Did you say you wanted a hat?
No, you don't look fat.
And you always have these kinds of conversations, and continuously things rhyme with cat. So you're always sort of reminded that this intro scene with the cat somehow sets the theme and ideas for the whole movie.
On that long goodbye theme, it's a while since I read the book. Altman extended that, I think. In the book, the title Long Goodbye makes sense because it's really a long goodbye to a friendship. And in the book, the first goodbye happens when Marlowe is asked by his friend Terry Lennox to get him across the border because apparently something has happened and Lennox needs to leave the country. And they part as friends. But then as the plot evolves, it becomes more and more clear to Marlowe in the book that his friend really doesn't act as a friend, but kind of took advantage of him. And they meet again at the end of the book. And it's obvious now to Marlowe that Lennox is no longer a friend, and they part ways forever at that point. In the movie, it's different. The movie is not a double murder suicide. In the movie, the plot is arguably kind of mixed up, but the theme of friendship is still the same. So in a sense, it's a long goodbye from Terry Lennox, who's not a good friend at all. But it involves many goodbyes throughout of people kind of randomly meeting, never understanding each other. Marlowe being interviewed by the police and not taking it seriously, and people are constantly running into each other and parting ways again, and you ask yourself, what was that about?
Hey, they got you too, huh, man? Hey man, how's your cat?
Ran away. How's your girl?
Plot moves on, and it's never is anything resolved really throughout.
Another setting where you kind of see the 1970s California is the beach house of the person who hires him as a detective. She wants him to find her husband. And, you know, in terms of plot, it's a little mixed up and it's somewhat unclear why she wants him to find her husband. But at any rate, that takes him to this California beach house with parties where people kind of all wear their 70s clothes and so on. And he's wearing his dark suit as sort of the typical Marlowe from the film noir era. And nevertheless, he somehow is totally at ease. And it just sort of, one way to look at it, I think, is that it's almost like a comedy about relativism. You see these clashes between different cultures, and it's not presented as something that is somehow horrible or problematic or whatever. It is somewhat comical because people talk past each other, people don't understand each other, but it's also somehow charming, and it leads to absurd situations, but in a way that can also just strike you as kind of satire and charming, rather than a clash in the sense of people fighting with each other.
In a sense, almost none of the characters seems to take things seriously at all. It's almost like a weird role play. The policemen, in a sense, they just play police.
Oh, is this where I'm supposed to say, what is all this about? And he says, shut up, I asked the question. Yeah, that's right.
And they're not good people. They fake a misdemeanor to take him in for questioning. It goes on that you never can quite tell, do these people in this movie play people who act in a movie, or is it a real plot? But in a sense, what happens at the end of the movie that was anticipated by Altman himself of difficult to keep in the movie when Marlowe shoots his friend.
Yeah, I even lost my cat.
Marlowe, like the old Marlowe in Chandler's book, takes certain things very seriously. And that's why he shoots his friend, because his friend did a very bad thing, inexcusable to Marlowe, excusable perhaps to everyone else in the movie, because no one really cares about anything and anyone can do whatever you want and you just move on. It's just, you move on to the next scene, even though it's real life, supposedly.
The hell, nobody cares.
Yeah, nobody cares but me.
And so he shoots his friend, and there's no question for him that he has to do that. And so it turns out at the very end that the old Marlowe really survived all along. It wasn't obvious, but here we are. And Altman seemed to have expected that this would be a very difficult ending commercially. So he had it in the contract that this scene stays, whatever happens. And I found that interesting.
Ladies, it's okay with me.